The heavens unleashed a monstrously powerful strike, shaking the earth as lightning split the rocks. It felt as though the gods themselves had descended, wreaking havoc. Two figures, wielding blades, fought like beasts amidst the clang of metal, their swords colliding in a frenzied dance. One was hurled aside, crashing to the ground with such force that stone shards scattered. Yet the battle raged unabated, the combatants moving at monstrous speeds, too fast for the human eye to follow. Blood sprayed as blows landed, and amidst it all, one managed to strike, eliciting a pained wheeze from the other. Then, the sky illuminated with the brightest flash, and the rivals found themselves on opposite sides of the ravine. The gray-bearded old man, panting heavily, held up a hand and turned to his adversary, acknowledging his capability to contend for the world's top spot. Yet, he lamented the youth's age, a sneer evident in his voice. Jian Chen, a young boy cloaked in snow white, stood firm with his hand gripped around his sword, its blade gleaming under the sun. His gaze toward the old man seethed with hatred, even as blood spilt from his mouth, his body weakening under the strain. With faltering strength, his grasp slackened, and the sword slowly descended to the ground. In his fading consciousness, a last regret pierced his hazy thoughts, the loss of the opportunity to master the art of swordsmanship. His expression darkened as awareness slipped away, his legs trembling, and he teetered on the brink of collapse. Yet, before he could fall, a sudden, searing pain jolted through him. Within him, only regret lingered, knowing he would never grasp the secrets of the Azalate sword law. As the sword clattered to the ground, still exuding a phantom magic aura, its blade piercing the earth, the ground quaked with such force that shards scattered in every direction, and the air seemed to grow heavier. The old man gritted his teeth, eyes ablaze with fury. Summoning his last reserves of strength, he attempted to resist his opponent, but his body had reached its limit. With an onslaught of incredible power, the mountain split, and the earth trembled under a monstrous impact, scattering bright sparks in all directions. In disbelief, the old man realized he had broken through, only to be pierced by a lump of dark energy through his scaly body. How was this possible? Exhausted, the protagonist's body plummeted along with heaps of stone from the shattered rock. Helpless, he could do nothing but succumb to the fall. Within moments, he would find himself in the water, the rushing stream carrying him away with its last vestiges of strength. As he shifted his gaze skyward, his eyes threatened to close, yet he summoned the last dregs of his strength. What he beheld alarmed him. The sky had abruptly shifted from blue to a foreboding dark purple. Sensing something amiss, his fading consciousness caught sight of the sky convulsing with another flash of light. A massive boulder hurtled towards him. Another second and it would crush him. But before impact, consciousness abandoned him, plunging him into the abyss of black nothingness. Was he truly dead? That single question nagged at his fading awareness. Slowly, his eyes fluttered open to a pleasant, feminine voice, a girl beckoning him to join her. Through blurry vision, he discerned a vague silhouette before him. As his eyes adjusted, he beheld the girl's beautiful face, her smile radiating happiness. Her warm voice informed him that dinner was ready. Suddenly aware of his nakedness and disoriented by his surroundings, he regarded the girl with displeasure, demanding she cover her ample breasts. Wasn't she ashamed? The girl's gaze met the baby's with surprise and horror, her frightened scream reverberating through the cozy cottage, seemingly heard by the entire village. The boy, bewildered, rose from his seat to witness the woman's frantic departure. Her panicked cries prompted him to speak, his voice tinged with both surprise and fear as he addressed her as young master. Confusion clouded his thoughts. What was she talking about? Casting a puzzled glance over himself, he realized with disbelief that he had shrunk in stature. Had he become a child? As the protagonist pondered his predicament, his gaze fell to an unexpected sight below his waist. Memories flooded back, the deadly battle with Doug, their mutual demise. And the sky, had it truly changed? Had he broken through? The notion seemed unfathomable. Surveying his surroundings, he sensed an unfamiliar atmosphere, prompting speculation. Was this another continent? Attempting to climb out of his cradle, he found amusement in the twitching of his legs. Despite defeating the old man, his remains remained untouched. There was a pressing need to return to the sect. Yet, the magnitude of his transformation eluded him. In the distance, a voice proclaimed that Zan was merely 6 months old. How could he speak? It was a question that undoubtedly pertained to the protagonist. Suddenly, several people burst into the room, led by an adult bearded man in his 40s. He regarded the girl with a mixture of surprise and irritation, questioning if she might be hallucinating due to breastfeeding. Behind him stood the girl and another man, likely a servant. The protagonist, still coming to terms with his situation, implored them to return him immediately to Tian'an Mountain, yet unaware of his transformed state. Without warning, the man scooped him up in his arms, joyfully squeezing him as he gazed directly at the protagonist. The others joined in the jubilation, proclaiming that their family had been blessed with a child chosen by the heavens. Despite the protagonist's protests and attempts to wriggle free, he remained trapped in the man's embrace, bewildered by his surroundings and desperate to return home. His pleas fell on deaf ears as the man continued to shower affection upon him, unaware of, or perhaps indifferent to, the boy's distress. As the baby's laughter bubbled forth, he realized with dawning horror that he was indeed trapped in another world, on a continent known as Tanwan. Before long, he found himself enveloped by his new family, the prestigious Changwan household, where he held the esteemed position of the fourth master. Held tightly in the arms of a relative, he struggled to make sense of his bewildering situation. Surrounded by a throng of well-wishers, each eager to embrace him for reasons he couldn't comprehend, he remained perplexed. Despite the confusion, he clung to the memories of his past life, resolved to both find a way back and resume his practice of the Azalate sword law. 3 years had passed since he had been thrust into his new life with the Changwan family. Now, as the family's holy power test approached, he harbored hopes that his intensive training would astound them all with his innate talent. Dressed in ceremonial warrior garb, albeit somewhat oversized and comical on his diminutive frame, he stood with arms crossed over his chest. Surrounding him, the family members looked on with anticipation, urging their young lord to showcase his strength. The boy observed the crowd around him, wondering if his power frightened them. Standing before an idol, he was instructed by an old man to place his palm on the stone. Approaching cautiously, he touched the hard surface, causing it to glow. From within, a symbol emerged, emitting a warm, bright light, an intricate whirlpool design. The old man's astonishment mirrored the protagonist's confusion. Eager for answers, he questioned the old man about the significance of the phenomenon. The old man's expression betrayed concern as he hesitated to deliver the news. Finally, he revealed that the symbol indicated the young master's inability to harness holy power effectively. The revelation struck like lightning, leaving the young master and those around him stunned. Despite the disheartening news, the old man continued without flinching, bluntly stating that the young gentleman lacked talent. The boy was at a loss for words, feeling a shiver run down his spine. However, amidst the disappointment, the unwavering support of his family offered solace. They pledged their enduring allegiance, assuring him of their love and support no matter what. It was a reminder of the unbreakable bond shared within the family, a beacon of hope in the face of adversity. Another elderly man, his eyes brimming with tears, gazed at the young gentleman, hoping to find a new chosen one for their household. However, the outcome was far from optimistic. Despite completing the test, it was revealed that the young master was unable to wield holy power. The news incited fury in the old man and shocked everyone present. How could he not cultivate holy power? It seemed inconceivable. Meanwhile, on the podium, stood a man clad in ceremonial attire, the protagonist's father. With the family crest displayed prominently behind him, he demanded to know if the old man truly believed the young master incapable of harnessing holy power. Anger laced his voice, clearly indicating his dissatisfaction with the situation. Amidst the tension, a young woman in her early 20s cast a fearful glance at the young master. She was the family's fourth wife, Bi Yunan, her apprehension evident. Another woman, the third wife named Bai Shuang, adorned with an impressive cleavage, appeared indifferent to the proceedings, lost in her own thoughts. Displeased, the young gentleman turned to the old man, questioning, "Is he a failure?"
Impossible.
The stone must be flawed. The boy struggled to accept the reality unfolding before him. The old man nodded solemnly, suggesting they repeat the test. His eyes gleamed with determination, poised to discern whether the young master possessed holy power. Silence enveloped the room once more, as the boy's father observed the proceedings with evident concern, dreading the possibility of his son's apparent lack of talent. Upon completing the test, the old man sighed heavily, signaling a disappointing outcome. Scratching his head in worry, the boy questioned what went wrong and if another examination would be conducted. Turning to the head of the household, the old man delivered the grim news. The young master's body showed no signs of saintly power. He simply couldn't cultivate. Fury simmered within the master, his anger slowly boiling over. Beside him, the fourth wife trembled with apprehension, unable to comprehend how this could be possible. Meanwhile, the third wife, her expression mocking, shook her head in disbelief, tauntingly questioning how a genius, blessed with abundant family resources, could prove to be so inept. The woman approached her master. The boy cradled in his arms and raised her voice for all to hear. "Have you all heard? Our esteemed master is no longer deemed a genius. It's time to remove these shameful posters. This is a disgrace." The servant gestured emphatically, instructing everyone to take down the supportive posters, eager to rid themselves of this embarrassment. Amidst the commotion, the young master remained perplexed. After years of dedicated practice in the art of swordplay, how could he lack saintly power when he had made considerable strides? The realm's essence was denser than in his previous world, promising even greater cultivation potential. So, what was the obstacle? Then, a revelation struck him. The first tenet of the sword law involved refining the body, a process he had enhanced with his own holy power for optimal purification. Could this be why they perceived him as lacking in saintly power now? The reasoning seemed plausible. Determined, he tapped his little fingers together, brainstorming ways to prove he was no mediocrity. As the tension mounted, the third wife of the family approached her master, suggesting that since Zan could no longer wield holy power and was deemed handicapped, the family's future rested with someone else. However, the man silenced her, fully aware of the situation. With a frown, he retreated to his quarters, declaring, "Today, all resources allocated to Shangon will be redirected to care, and the fourth wife's funds will be halved." The young lord overheard the decree, and in light of being branded a waste, his demeanor shifted immediately, a cruel twist of fate that left him reeling. Locked in a silent exchange, the father's gaze betrayed his anger and discontent with the day's events. However, resigned to his fate as an outcast, the young lord could do nothing but accept his new reality. With a command to disperse, the head of the household signaled the end of the day's proceedings. As the third wife approached the fourth, she couldn't resist a mocking remark, insinuating that she had raised a worthless son and remarking on the difficulties she must now face. The fourth wife, devoid of sympathy, was met with only laughter from her counterpart. The old man shook his head, advising the young master not to harbor resentment toward the head of the family for his harsh decision, emphasizing the man's responsibility for the entire household. The boy nodded, acknowledging the weight of the situation. Reflecting on the events, the boy sought to quell the resentment brewing within him. Perhaps, he mused, this turn of events was for the best. As the others dispersed, only the fourth wife remained seated, her gaze fixed on her son. Approaching her, the boy sensed her distress, their eyes mirroring a shared disappointment. It was clear to all that the aftermath of this incident wouldn't bring about positive change. With a heavy heart, the boy confessed his sense of failure to his mother, overwhelmed with shame. Yet, she met his confession with unwavering warmth, assuring him that his inability to cultivate held no shame. She reminded him that his talents likely lay in other areas, waiting to be revealed in due time. So what if he can't cultivate? She reassured him. That doesn't diminish his worth. He'll demonstrate his true talents when the time is right. The woman's smile conveyed reassurance as she encouraged her son, her fist clenched in determination as she vowed to protect him from any harm. With her arm around him, he felt a sense of security, knowing she loved him unconditionally. Later, as she visited him, expressing her pride in him as her best son, he broke free from her embrace, determined not to worry her. His newfound confidence surprised her, his eyes shining with resolve. Declaring that he wouldn't disappoint his mother again, he vowed to silence any opposition, spurred on by his love for her. Her warm smile affirmed her faith in him. With a furrowed brow and clenched fist, he made a decisive choice, to use his knowledge and power to challenge the prejudices of the elitists. Under cover of night, he slipped into the Changguan House library, delving into ancient scriptures, absorbing knowledge like a sponge, his focus unwavering as he sought to harness the energy contained within. At the age of 7, the boy sat in the library, diligently absorbing knowledge from the countless books on energy cultivation. With a heavy sigh, he closed the final time, having devoured over 1,000 volumes. His mind buzzed with the weight of newfound knowledge, his head throbbing with the strain. Rising to his feet, he resolved to test his newfound prowess, blending the techniques from the library with the laws of the energy-collecting ball. As magical energy swirled around him, he focused his strength on his hand, preparing to unleash a powerful strike. With a decisive swing, the vortex intensified, culminating in a brilliant flash of magical light upon impact. A distinct mark from his palm adorned the spot, cracks radiating outward, a testament to his newfound strength. Clutching his fist, a sense of satisfaction washed over him. 3 years prior, he had integrated his body with holy power, eliminating the need for temperance. Now, his cultivation surged forward at a rapid pace, buoyed by his newfound mastery. As everyone slumbered peacefully, the boy continued his clandestine training, honing his skills in solitude. With no prying eyes to observe him, he could fully concentrate on his cultivation, pushing himself to new limits with each practice session. Peeking cautiously around the doorframe as dawn approached, he knew it was time to return to his mother before she discovered his secret training. He had to tread carefully to avoid arousing suspicion. Entering his mother's room, he found her alone, the dim light casting shadows across the space. She was seated at the table, arranging slices of cucumber neatly on a plate. Sitting beside her, he observed quietly. As she delicately picked up a slice, she remarked, "A little reminder for my boy," her voice light and cheerful. Suddenly, she applied cucumbers to her own face, eliciting a chuckle from the boy at the comical sight. Yet, her warm, motherly tone softened the moment as she continued, "No matter the circumstances, my son should always uphold high standards." With gentle hands, she began to mold cucumbers onto his face, her actions a tender expression of maternal care and love. The boy cast a pitiful gaze at his mother, a look so poignant it could soften even the hardest heart. He apologized, expressing remorse that his disability had caused her so much suffering. In response, the woman smiled warmly and gently dismissed his self-blame, urging him to simply pay attention. As she began to massage her cheeks, the woman encouraged the boy to follow suit, remarking on the health benefits of their simple meal. "Even though it's basic, it's still nourishing," she explained. "Cucumbers are excellent for reducing fat, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Wouldn't you say?" Reflecting for a moment, the girl shared a recent anecdote about their third sister, whose expensive skincare products had backfired, leaving her face swollen. The boy listened intently, his eyes widening in surprise before erupting into laughter. Despite his annoyance at her earlier teasing, he found himself amused once more. Then, as if remembering something important, the woman handed the boy a small book. "This is your reading assignment for today, along with the accompanying tasks," she informed him. With a heavy sigh, the boy reluctantly accepted the book, hoping his mother might forget about the assignment. Unfolding the page, He began to read with a sense of resignation, tentatively asking if he could skip the writing tasks, secretly wishing to avoid the extra workload. The woman gently patted her cheeks, her expression tinged with sadness as she addressed him. "Since you're unable to cultivate holy power," she began, "your path to a bright future lies in knowledge. I'm doing this for your own benefit." With an unhappy sigh, the boy resigned himself to the task he detested. Perhaps he should inform her of his ability to wield holy power. However, the woman's stern gaze halted his thoughts as she warned him that if he possessed such abilities, she would only demand more from him. The boy shuddered at the thought, envisioning his mother transforming into a literal demon, relentless in her demands. In his imagination, the girl sprouted horns, decreeing that he would face double the tasks if he could cultivate. Feeling trapped, he reluctantly agreed, seeing it as the lesser evil. Hastily, he announced his intention to head to the library, hoping to escape his duties. The woman's affectionate smile followed him as he left, her reminder to not neglect his homework echoing in his mind. As he briskly walked to the library, he found himself confronted with empty shelves and a lack of motivation to tackle his assignments. Where could he possibly spend his time now? Suddenly, a tantalizing aroma caught his attention, causing his mouth to water instantly. With eagerness, the boy dashed towards home, driven by the desire to taste the delicious pie that beckoned to him. Arriving home, he found the pie laid out neatly on a small plate, its allure heightened by the sight of a beautiful lotus flower beside it, emanating an incredible fragrance. As his hand reached out to claim the treat, a stern voice pierced the air. "The young master is pilfering from the kitchen. What a disgrace!" Startled, the boy watched as the plate seemed to evade his grasp, swiftly whisked away by someone. He turned to confront the servant, questioning the audacity of a mere servant to act in such a manner towards the young master. However, the servant, named Xiao, remained composed, refusing to be drawn into the boy's provocation. Identifying himself as the servant of the third mistress, Xiao asserted his independence, stating that even the mistress had no authority over him, let alone her son. Dissatisfied, the boy demanded the return of the pie, only to be met with a sly response from the servant. Leaning in, Xiao remarked, "I recall the fourth mistress had a fondness for carrot cakes. Don't you agree? How considerate of the young master to think of her." It was evident that the servant was playing a subtle game of manipulation. The boy's hand remained outstretched, his demand for the pie unwavering. But the servant, relishing the opportunity to taunt him, repeated his mocking words, a satisfied grin stretching across his face, his eyes gleaming with cunning. As the boy stood there, he couldn't help but overhear the servants gossiping about him behind his back. "It's a shame the fourth mistress can't enjoy a simple carrot cake because of this wretch," one servant remarked. "He's only tolerated here out of the head's kindness. Otherwise, he would have been dismissed long ago." Despite their words, the boy remained silent, his focus solely on retrieving the pie. In a flash, the boy's expression transformed, his eyes flashing with a fierce hatred that belied his youth. With deliberate malice, the servant jerked his hand, causing the plate of carrot cake to slip from his grasp and shatter upon hitting the ground. Anger surged through the boy, his rage boiling over unexpectedly. Drawing upon a wellspring of magical energy within himself, he unleashed a powerful strike at the deceitful servant, his fist connecting squarely with the man's jaw. Stunned, the servant staggered backwards, taken aback by the force of the blow he hadn't anticipated. The other servants stood frozen in horror, their eyes wide with shock as they witnessed the devastating outcome of the boy's actions. The targeted servant, reeling from the force of the blow, nearly collapsed, struggling to remain conscious under the impact of the powerful strike. With a stern demeanor, the boy fixed his gaze on the fallen servant, his voice dripping with seriousness as he admonished them for their complacency over the past 2 years, fueled by the support of the third ant. His words carried an air of authority, his expression tinged with anger as he asserted his dominance. It was clear he was ready to assert his authority and put them in their place, his demeanor radiating defiance. Before another servant could react, They too were met with a fierce blow to the face, the impact so forceful that bones audibly crunched upon contact. The boy's strength was astonishing, his strike causing the servant's nose to break, sending him hurtling backwards with such force that teeth were dislodged, and blood was spat out as he flew several meters, crashing into the wall with a resounding thud. It was unfathomable that a mere 7-year-old could possess such formidable strength. Exhausted and incapacitated, one servant could only watch helplessly as a cacophony of noise erupted from upstairs. Plates tumbled from the shelves, crashing down upon the fallen man's head with a deafening clamor, splintering into pieces upon impact. Fearful and uncertain, the remaining servants dared not intervene, their trepidation growing as they questioned the extent of the young master's power. The boy stood over the defeated servant, his gaze shifting towards the others with a simmering anger. He confronted them about their deceitful actions over the past 2 years, how they had extorted money from his mother while providing him with meals made from inferior ingredients. Did they truly believe he wouldn't uncover their deception? The servants remained silent, their eyes cast downward in shame and apprehension. Stepping closer, the boy delivered a stern warning in a tone even more serious and confrontational. If this happens again, he declared, there will be consequences far more severe. Their fear palpable, the servants nodded in silent agreement, acknowledging his authority and the gravity of his warning. With a decisive turn, the boy swiftly made his way towards the exit, leaving the others in stunned silence. Could this truly be the young master they had known? He had incapacitated a level 3 ST Force servant with a single blow, leaving them in disbelief. Outside, life carried on as usual. The melody of birdsong filled the air, and the warmth of the sun enveloped everything in its golden glow. With a sense of satisfaction, the boy walked briskly down the street, his hands clasped behind his head. Teaching the deceitful servants a lesson had lifted his spirits, leaving him feeling rejuvenated. Perhaps, he mused, he should engage in such acts of justice more frequently. Suddenly, a strange sound caught the boy's attention, drawing his gaze towards the source of the commotion. A few meters away, another boy vigorously swung a wooden axe, fully engrossed in his practice. It was Chang Guanjie, the third lord of the manor, shouting battle cries as he wielded his weapon with determination. Each swing was executed with precision, his focus solely on honing his skills. With a final flourish, he unleashed a crushing blow before spinning around in a whirlwind of motion, his shouts echoing through the air. But as his energy waned, he stood panting, trying to regain his composure. The protagonist watched with irritation. That overweight fool is here again? Is this what he calls practice? From a distance, it resembled more of a clumsy dance. Disgusted, the boy turned away, opting to take a different route. However, his attempt to avoid further spectacle was thwarted when Chang Guanjie noticed him. Without hesitation, the boy approached, inwardly plotting mischief. Isn't that the same little nuisance? He thought, devising a devious plan. This is the perfect opportunity to play a trick on his poor little brother. With swift strides, he ran up to the boy, calling out, "Hey you, come here. I've got candy for you." The protagonist's irritation flared as he questioned the absurdity of offering candy to someone his age, only to realize that the boy truly was 7 years old, a fact that did little to bolster his confidence. Caught off guard by the boy's innocent inquiry, he begrudgingly acknowledged the truth, though it did little to ease his annoyance. Just as he was about to leave, his half-brother seized his sleeve, issuing a demand disguised as a request for them to practice together. Knowing he had little choice in the matter, the protagonist reluctantly acquiesced, his brother reassuring him that he would go easy on him. An opportunity for revenge flickered in the protagonist's mind as he contemplated the years of mistreatment he and his mother endured at the hands of these people. Why shouldn't he repay them in kind? With determination brewing within him, he resolved to seize the moment and teach his half-brother a lesson for all the pain he had caused. A sly smile played across his lips as he cautioned his brother to be gentle, a clear indication of his ulterior motive. Sensing the shift in his demeanor, the third brother regarded him with disdain, a flicker of suspicion crossing his mind. Is this kid really plotting something? He wondered, quickly dismissing the thought. After all, what did he have to fear? He possessed superior strength, while the protagonist remained nothing more than a powerless outcast. The protagonist's surprise was evident as he questioned the location of their sparring session. Following Fatty's lead, they arrived at the armory, a place adorned with an array of weapons including swords, spears, bows, and arrows, catering to every preference. Fatty gestured towards the gun rack, offering his brother the freedom to select any weapon of his choosing. To everyone's astonishment, the protagonist opted for a humble branch plucked from a nearby tree. Is that truly the extent of his arsenal? Murmured onlookers in disbelief. Undeterred, the boy asserted that he would indeed fight with the branch, displaying a confidence that bordered on arrogance. Fatty, taken aback by the unconventional choice, could only marvel at the boy's audacity. With this branch? Is he completely? He trailed off, astonished by the protagonist's apparent eagerness to challenge the world. Brandishing the branch with practiced ease, the protagonist awaited Fatty's impending attack with unwavering composure. As Fatty lunged forward with his axe, the boy remained calm, deftly evading the blow with a swift sidestep. With a miscalculation of his strength, Fatty's axe embedded itself into the ground, leaving him vulnerable. Seizing the opportunity, the protagonist focused all his strength on the branch, delivering a powerful strike that left Fatty frozen in horror. Fatty's disbelief was palpable as he struggled to comprehend the unexpected turn of events. How could this seemingly insignificant boy possess such astonishing abilities? With lightning speed, the protagonist maneuvered the small branch with unparalleled agility, narrowly missing Fatty's neck by mere centimeters. The rush of air and the proximity of the branch left Fatty reeling, a grimace of horror etched across his face. Meanwhile, the protagonist maintained his cocky demeanor, flashing a triumphant smile towards the third brother. With confidence ringing in his voice, he declared the victory as his own. But to the third brother's dismay, such a notion seemed preposterous. Enraged, he dismissed the outcome, accusing his opponent of cheating and refusing to accept defeat. Unfazed by the accusations, the protagonist maintained his mischievous grin, genuinely perplexed by the notion of cheating. Fatty, struggling to catch his breath, grappled with his emotions, torn between acknowledging his defeat and clinging to the hope of salvaging his pride. Despite his inner turmoil, he rallied himself, insisting that the round didn't count and demanding a fresh start, determined to prove himself in a new round of combat. The protagonist maintained his calm demeanor, smiling confidently as he waved the twig in his hand. He assured them that he was ready to start over without any issues. However, behind him, Fatty seethed with resentment. He had underestimated the boy, and now he burned with the realization that this seemingly insignificant opponent had caught him off guard. If he were to fight seriously, he believed the boy wouldn't stand a chance. Yet, here he stood, smiling innocently as if he hadn't just outmaneuvered them both effortlessly. Watching the third brother's frustration boil over, Fatty simmered with indignation. He was accustomed to being perceived as invincible, and this defeat bruised his ego. Narrowing his eyes, Fatty scrutinized the twig the protagonist held, pondering if it held some hidden power. With a smile, he requested to examine the branch for himself. Reluctantly, the boy relinquished the ordinary stick, weariness evident in his eyes. As the branch exchanged hands, a wide grin spread across the third brother's face. He now possessed the supposed secret weapon. Tossing the branch into the air, he wielded his axe with renewed determination. Caught off guard by the sudden shift in tactics, the protagonist's eyes widened in surprise. He realized that the scoundrel had resorted to trickery. Unfazed, he squared his shoulders, a glint of determination igniting in his gaze. The thrill of battle surged within him as he focused entirely on the impending duel. He couldn't afford to lose. His honor was on the line, and that fat bastard would pay for everything. Suddenly, a familiar sensation gripped his mind, a déjà vu from his encounter with the old man. With focused intent, the boy began channeling divine power, enveloping his body in its radiant energy. Armed with the divine sword, he was ready. Unbeknownst to him, the third brother reveled in premature triumph, eager to crush the young challenger. Yet, in an unexpected turn, the protagonist seized control of the wand mid-air, while Fatty poised his axe for a decisive strike, envisioning his ascent to family leadership and Zangan's demise. Ignoring the impending threat, the boy maintained his concentration, refining his magical energy to manipulate the wand flawlessly. With astounding speed, the wand became a lethal projectile aimed directly at his adversary. Caught off guard, Fatty tumbled to the ground, oblivious to the swift turn of events. The boy stood calmly as he observed his vanquished foe sprawled on the ground, attempting to gather his wits. Clutching his cheek in bewilderment, the fat man struggled to comprehend the situation. Beside him, a stick was firmly lodged in the earth, a testament to the swiftness of the recent confrontation. Examining his injured hand, which bore a fresh cut, and the trickle of blood from his cheek, Fatty's confusion turned to outrage. "How dare that little brat strike me?" he bellowed, already plotting to inform his mother of the injustice he suffered. In response, the protagonist clenched his fists, his voice low and menacing, warning Fatty of dire consequences if he dared to use that derogatory term again. His demeanor grew more menacing, instilling fear in the third brother, who promptly fled to their mother to voice his grievances, his terror of his half-brother palpable. As the fatty's cries echoed, the protagonist remained stoic, observing the scene with detached indifference. While he may have overreacted, the repercussions held little sway over him. Punishment was a minor concern compared to the satisfaction of asserting his dominance. Turning away, the boy retreated in hopes that the incident wouldn't entangle his mother. Yet, a presence approached from behind, swiftly extracting a wand from the ground. Though the identity remained shrouded, the boy sensed scrutiny, recognizing the onset of change within their household, and realizing he must adapt to the shifting dynamics. Meanwhile, concerned voices emanated from the family chambers. Fatty, now bandaged and tearful, stood beside his mother, her anger palpable. Her face, either swollen from skincare or excess consumption, betrayed her frustration. The patriarch observed in grim silence, his displeasure evident. Among the commotion stood the servant whom the boy had struck, also bandaged and vocal in his accusations. He decried the young master's lack of control and demanded immediate punishment from the patriarch. In a commanding tone, the patriarch questioned the boy's ability to harness divine power, questioning his actions against Chu Eru and Keru. Confusion reigned as the head grappled with the unfolding turmoil. His third wife drew nearer, her lips swollen as she accused the fourth sister of indulging the boy, insinuating her involvement in orchestrating the attack on her son. She emphasized the importance of restoring justice, given her son's future leadership role in the family. The head remained silent, observing the escalating confrontation. Reflecting on his family's reputation for benevolence, the man vowed severe consequences if the accusations against the boy proved true, his frown deepening in concern. Undeterred, the servant persisted in his accusations, prompting the head to summon Shainin with a commanding voice, prepared to mete out punishment if warranted. The third wife, her expression predatory, threatened expulsion for the accused. Amidst the turmoil, life outside continued tranquilly, oblivious to the internal strife. Despite the recent upheaval, the serene weather belied the gravity of the situation. Bringing the discussion to a close, the man asserted his intention to address the matter directly. The distraught wife implored the heavens for justice as the gentle voice of the fourth wife intervened from outside, reassuring her that there was no need to search for her son. She stepped forward, a determined expression on her face, and asserted to the gentleman that her son bore no responsibility for the day's events. It was all her doing. Her voice trembled with agitation and embarrassment as she confessed. Taken aback, the man queried, "So you're saying you're the one who harmed those two?" Lowering her gaze, she began her explanation. She revealed her fears of her son being targeted for his inability to cultivate, admitting to surreptitiously following him for protection. Leaning in close, she whispered her account to the gentleman, detailing how she witnessed the two men bullying her son earlier that day. Fueled by anger, she took it upon herself to intervene, implicating the servant, the third wife, and her own son. The third wife recoiled in horror at the accusations, vehemently defending her son's innocence and the servant's integrity. Her cheeks, now swollen like a hamster's, betrayed her distress. It was evident that the fourth sister was willing to bear the blame to shield the boy from harm. Unyielding, the protagonist's mother persisted in her defense, emphasizing her son's incapacity for cultivation and questioning how he could possibly harm others. The woman abruptly ceased her tirade, acknowledging the validity of Yunin's words. With her facade crumbling, she appeared more vulnerable than ever, her makeup smudged and her cheeks swollen. Yunin, displaying humility, knelt before her master and confessed Pineapple's sole culpability, absolving her son of any involvement. She willingly accepted the punishment, shouldering the blame alone. The man, taken aback by the revelation, remained speechless. Yet, a wave of compassion softened his expression. Recognizing Yunin's honesty, he imposed a sentence of meditative seclusion for a month. The third wife's fury intensified at what she deemed a lenient punishment. Yunin, resigned to her fate, nodded in deference. Despite her compliance, the third wife persisted, her son's cries amplifying her distress. Clutching her son tightly, she implored the patriarch to take decisive action, her son's pleas echoing the dire consequences for the family. With a calculated gleam in her eyes, the woman contemplated the family's fate as she wielded a sphere of magic in her hands. Her inquiry dripped with sarcasm as she questioned forgiveness should Yunin cure Kair, her intentions thinly veiled behind a wry smile. The third wife's outcry warned of potential danger, and her concerns met with Yunin's visible irritation. Meanwhile, the patriarch, weary of the ongoing dispute, could only manage a heavy sigh. As the women's quarrel persisted, accusations flew back and forth. The fourth wife accused the woman of ulterior motives, provoking a vehement denial. Incensed, the woman retaliated, asserting her innocence and shifting blame back onto her accusers. Amidst the escalating tension, insults were hurled, each barb fueling the intensity of the argument. With his patience depleted, the man made a swift exit to his bedchamber, leaving the women to their heated exchange, opting to distance himself from their tumultuous conflict. The courtyard garden exuded tranquility. Fish frolicked in a pond somewhere amidst the greenery, while birds chirped melodiously in the treetops. The atmosphere was so serene that one could easily drift into slumber. The protagonist sat amidst this peaceful scene, lost in thought for what seemed like an eternity. Why hadn't anyone come looking for him? Hadn't the third wife and her son raised any concerns? These questions gnawed at his mind, exhausting him. Moreover, his mother was nowhere to be found. Suddenly, a strange sound pierced the calm, heralding an approaching presence with alarming speed. Sensing impending danger, the boy instinctively braced himself. Just moments before impact, he narrowly evaded a knife thrust aimed at him. Before him stood a stranger, his figure obscured by a mask. Another dagger gleamed menacingly in his hand. The man accused the boy of harming the third young master, threatening imminent demise. It dawned on the boy that this was orchestrated by Bu Yushan. With clarity, he confronted the assailant, confirming his affiliation with Bu Yushan. Realization struck, confirming his suspicions. So, that's how it is. She's endured them for too long, he declared defiantly. The man gripped his blade, poised to strike the defenseless boy. With a swift leap, he brought the weapon down, aiming directly at the protagonist. Armed only with a wand, the boy faced imminent peril, fully aware of the lethal intent behind the assailant's actions. In a desperate maneuver, the boy dodged aside, narrowly escaping the swing of the assailant's blade. Doubt crept in. Could this man truly intend to end his life? Each passing moment heightened the tension. Focusing his energy, the assailant conjured a spell, casting a brilliant red hue around him. In a flash, a column of searing flames erupted dangerously close to the boy, their intense heat grazing his skin. Despite the threat, The boy remained steadfast, knowing the assailant's power was limited to the 4th level of saint power, offering him a means of defense. Summoning all his spiritual strength, the boy pivoted and hurled the branch with immense force. In a remarkable display, the branch transformed into a beam of radiant energy, aimed squarely at the assailant. Unfazed, the stranger smirked, underestimating the potential harm posed by the seemingly innocuous projectile, standing idle in his confidence. Who says a branch can't do any harm? The boy's distant smile twisted into an eerie grin, resembling that of a demon. Channeling an immense surge of magical energy through his body into the small wand, he propelled the branch upward, then directed it downward with incredible speed, creating a swirling vortex around them. The assailant, taken aback, watched in astonishment as the wand hurtled toward him. With no time to evade, he braced for impact, resigned to his fate. As the projectile approached, his eyes widened in terror, anticipating the inevitable. But in a sudden twist of fate, the wand sliced through his mask, splitting it in two. Stunned and barely able to maintain his balance, the man staggered, revealing the face of the family patriarch beneath the shattered mask. He stood there, gasping for breath, rendered speechless. Both the man and the boy were stunned into silence. The boy, grappling with a mix of shock and confusion, waved his hands nervously. Now faced with the unexpected revelation of his father's identity, he found himself at a loss for words, overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty. The man's scowl deepened, and his teeth bared in anger, signaling imminent danger for the protagonist. Sensing the threat, the boy considered fleeing, but in a sudden shift, the man's expression softened into a radiant smile, tears of joy welling in his eyes. Could his son truly possess the holy power? Overwhelmed with emotion, the man struggled to find the right words, his heart brimming with happiness at the revelation. Instantly, the tension dissipated as the man ceased to be angry with his son. With a nod, Xiao affirmed his father's realization, admitting his ability to wield holy power from the outset. Fear gave way to honesty as he confessed to injuring the 3rd brother and the servant. He welcomed any punishment his father deemed fit, but pleaded to spare his mother from involvement. Stunned, the father grappled with disbelief. Taking his son by the shoulders, he questioned why Xiao hadn't disclosed this earlier. If he had known, they could have. Words trailed off, lost in the overwhelming rush of emotions. However, the boy withdrew his hand, frustration evident in his tone as he retorted, "Why should I have told you?" The man was taken aback by his child's outburst. What had caused this sudden change in his demeanor? But the protagonist's sentiments differed greatly from his father's elation. Once hailed as a prodigy, showered with resources and affection, everything changed the moment his father discovered his inability to wield holy power. In an instant, they were abandoned to fend for themselves. The boy's countenance shifted abruptly, his features morphing into those of a mature individual rather than a mere child. His voice grew coarse as he confronted his father, questioning his worth in his eyes. "Was I nothing more than a tool to him?" he demanded. The father faltered, at a loss for words. Never had he seen his child in such a state. Fear tinged his trembling voice as he attempted to gather his thoughts. He explained that he was facing hardships and had to prioritize securing the family's future. But the boy's cries persisted. His brow furrowed in frustration as he pressed further. "What about our personal struggles? Did he ever consider the trials we endured over the past 2 years while the 3rd wife tormented us? Did he make any effort to intervene? Or have we ceased to be his family?" The protagonist seethed with fury, while his father regarded him with a perplexed expression. Despite his father's confusion, the boy's tirade continued. "Back when I was hailed as a genius, he wouldn't have even batted an eye if I perished." The family patriarch was on the verge of tears, unable to comprehend his son's accusations. He vehemently denied any callousness toward him or his mother. But the boy remained resolute, speaking with unwavering seriousness. He admitted to caring little for his own fate, but his mother's suffering was unforgivable. In an attempt to reconcile, the man extended his arms, pleading for understanding. He argued that, despite being the head of the family, he couldn't shield everyone from harm. Dismissing his father's attempts at reconciliation, the boy turned away. That's how it is. He may be the head of the family, but he only prioritizes his own mother, he declared with a harsh tone. Shocked and speechless, the man struggled to respond. With a final, defiant remark, the boy declared that family bonds held no significance for him anymore, willing to accept any punishment his father deemed fit. The man struggled to find the right words, but his son had already turned away, oblivious to his attempts at communication. A pang of sadness pierced the man's heart as he realized the gravity of his mistake. He knew he had to work hard to make amends. Just then, a wise voice, belonging to Uncle Day, resonated from outside, urging the man to acknowledge his error and offer an apology. The man's shame deepened as he turned to face his uncle, fearing that he had witnessed the entire altercation. Meanwhile, the tranquil ambience of the garden persisted, with a gentle morning mist drifting over the serene indoor pond. Walking alongside his uncle, the master pondered the recent events. Uncle Day remarked on Xiang Tian's remarkable ability, noting that he not only injured the third son, but also nearly reached the Lord himself. The young master is truly gifted, he observed. In response, the man explained that he had intentionally suppressed his Saint Force level to the fourth, allowing the boy to retaliate. Yet, despite initial assessments suggesting an inability to cultivate holy power, the situation had taken an unexpected turn. The old man echoed the man's confusion, acknowledging the discrepancy between the young master's obvious potential and the stone's assessment of his inability to cultivate holy power. Despite this, the old man had maintained a watchful eye on the boy for the past 2 years, even clandestinely observing his efforts in the library to cultivate holy power. Puzzled by his uncle's silence, the man questioned why he hadn't shared his observations earlier, especially considering the multitude of concerns that had arisen. In response, the old man explained that his scrutiny extended beyond the young master to include the head of the family himself. Taken aback, the man wondered if he, too, had been under scrutiny. The old man's reproachful gaze conveyed his disappointment, highlighting the head's obliviousness to the situation. He revealed his intention to take the boy to a place where he could receive proper care and guidance. Shocked and appalled, the man defended his family's reputation for hospitality and respect, questioning how the old man could make such accusations. But the old man remained composed, asserting that he was merely a guest in the family, unable to ignore the neglect of their own son. He refused to accept blame for their shortcomings. The head of the family was at a loss for words, feeling the weight of Uncle's words. He bowed his head, acknowledging his failure as a father and the resulting animosity from his son. Uncle offered reassurance, expressing faith in the young gentleman's fair character. He emphasized the importance of honesty and openness in fatherhood, believing it to be the key to bridging the divide between them. Finally grasping the gravity of the situation, the man smiled and vowed to do better, promising his uncle that he would strive to mend their relationship. Meanwhile, the family residence stood grand and imposing in the distance, its towering pagoda reaching towards the sky. Inside, in the main hall, the third and fourth wives exchanged heated words. The third wife tended to her injured son, seething with anger towards the head for attending to the other child. She vowed that this time, they would pay dearly. Yunan, her rival, met her glare with equal intensity, accusing her of arrogance. She suggested the third wife take her son to her mother's house, where she would be powerless. How dare she show her face in public after her actions? The third wife nearly choked on her words, her confidence shaken. She reminded herself that everything would soon return to normal, urging herself to stay composed. Suddenly, the doors swung open, revealing the imposing figure of the head of the household. The man entered with his son, his tone laced with menace as he announced that the boy was indeed responsible for the injuries inflicted. Upon hearing this, the third wife erupted into wails, demanding severe punishment for the boy. The protagonist's mother trembled in fear, a chill creeping through her veins. Meanwhile, the boy defiantly stuck out his tongue at the third wife. Maintaining his composure, the head addressed the situation calmly. He admonished Kerr and Care for their bullying behavior, deeming it unforgivable. With that, he declared the matter resolved and closed. Turning to his son, the head instructed him to apologize. The boy, quietly picking his nose, muttered an apology that sounded more like a mockery than genuine remorse. Enraged, the third wife protested, demanding further action. "Are they just going to sweep this under the rug?" she fumed. The protagonist's mother gazed at her son, her expression a mix of surprise and concern, while the woman beside her continued to express her indignation. Her son is the future of the family. How could they allow this? Despite her protests, the master intervened, commanding silence. Chu Er's mistreatment of Yunin and her son had already breached family protocols, resulting in his expulsion from the household. With authority in his voice, the master declared that any further disrespect towards Yunin and her son would be met with severe consequences. The boy, arms folded confidently, listened with a smug grin. Meanwhile, the third wife seethed with anger, unable to articulate her thoughts, while the protagonist's mother radiated with happiness, rendered speechless by the unexpected turn of events. Father and son exchanged a glance, the man questioning if justice had been served. The boy nodded in agreement. Approaching his mother, the boy inquired, "Did they really not do anything to her?" Her astonishment is palpable. She inquired if the father had indeed spared the boy from punishment. In response, the father explained that they had simply conversed as equals, earning a gentle rebuke from his wife for encouraging the boy's adult-like behavior, reminiscent of their own upbringing. The boy glared fiercely at his sworn enemies. The family patriarch then requested the woman to tend to the injuries of his third wife and her son. With a reassuring smile, the woman agreed, stipulating that her own son remained unharmed. Before the third wife could protest, the man intervened, silencing her objections. All she could manage was a pout of frustration. Yunin once again employed her healing magic. A large sphere of green-blue light materialized in her hand, which she gently applied to the third wife's face. The boy observed his mother's actions in awe, recognizing the divine energy flowing through her. Was this the legendary power of the saints? Within minutes, the woman completed her treatment, and like magic, all wounds vanished. The third wife and her son gingerly touched their faces, marveling at their swift recovery. Yunin, with pride, surveyed her work, satisfied that all was well. The family patriarch, alongside his son, regarded her with astonishment and admiration. The man couldn't help but acknowledge the stunning beauty of his wife. The boy contemplated that mastering such energy could double his training effectiveness. But his father's firm grip on his shoulder interrupted his thoughts. In a grave tone, the man declared that despite closing the case, the boy remained guilty and must face consequences. His mother's shock and dismay mirrored his own confusion. This wasn't the agreement, he pondered. The woman, horrified, questioned, "He still has to be punished?" Meanwhile, the third wife savored the moment, delighted that justice would prevail. The man, his brow furrowed, explained that the boy's clandestine training was improper. Henceforth, his punishment would be to accompany Uncle D to the secret training room until he attained the 8th level of saint power. Shock rippled through everyone. Was this truly punishment? The third wife's son even expressed a desire for similar discipline. The protagonist silently questioned the fairness of it all, though the prospect of training under his uncle didn't seem too daunting. But there was more. The man had one final task for him. As he handed over a small envelope, the boy's eyes widened in surprise. He was instructed to open it upon reaching the 8th level, hinting at a potentially life-altering future. The father's expression bore a troubled intensity, a shift from his previous demeanor towards his son, now tinged with a softer, more affectionate gaze. The boy couldn't shake the thought. Did this letter hold the key to his future? Though its contents remained a mystery, he remained steadfast in obeying his father's directive. And so began 7 years of rigorous training. In the uncle's chamber, the patriarch and his brother-in-law sat over tea, engaging in peaceful conversation. "How's the training progressing? Has he reached the 8th level yet?" inquired the patriarch. The uncle sighed. In recent years, the young master's progress has slowed considerably. He currently resides at the 7th level. Despite the boy's undeniable talent at 14, the uncle sensed a subtle reluctance in his dedication. Sipping his tea, the uncle voiced his suspicion that the young master seemed unwilling to fully commit to his cultivation. Furrowing his brow, the patriarch pressed for evidence of such claims. After a pause, the uncle admitted that it was more of an intuition. He believed the young master possessed the potential to ascend to the 8th level of holy power at will. The patriarch's demeanor turned grave. If the boy fails to attain the 8th level of saint power by year's end, he stated, eyeing the letter on the table, he'll have to wait another year. Despite the rigorous daily training regimen, the boy balanced his efforts, mindful not to overexert himself. Meanwhile, the 4th lady reclined on her chaise longue, indulging in a restful slumber beneath rejuvenating cucumber slices. Suddenly, a servant approached, bearing a tray of seasonal fruits and snacks. The patriarch had ordered these treats for both the lady and the young master. The lady, still in her relaxed state, declined, stating her son was engrossed in cultivation. She requested the servant to leave the tray, promising to deliver it herself later, to which the servant acquiesced before departing. With a contented sigh, the lady reclined further, reveling in her improving circumstances. Each passing year saw her demeanor brighten, and today was no exception. She couldn't help but bask in her newfound happiness. In his chamber, the young master diligently honed his skills, pouring his efforts into rigorous training. At just 14 years old, he appeared remarkably mature and formidable, his physique reflecting the dedication he poured into his practice. With his sword in hand, he sat in deep meditation, immersing himself in spiritual energy to enhance his concentration. Meanwhile, a group of assailants clad in the attire of assassins launched an attack on the temple. Despite the monks' valiant efforts to repel the invaders, their strength faltered in the absence of the protagonist. Outnumbered and facing adversaries armed with curved blades, the monks struggled to hold their ground against the relentless onslaught. Each wave of attack threatened to overwhelm them, leaving them teetering on the brink of defeat. Yet, even in the face of imminent danger, they refused to yield, determined to defend their sanctuary against the cultists. Amidst the chaos, one of the assassins taunted, "Resistance is futile. Your brother is long gone, and now you are powerless." With a menacing leap, the assailants prepared to deliver a final, fatal blow, intent on wiping out their adversaries without mercy. Undeterred, the monks rallied together, forming a defensive stance with their blades poised, resolved to defy their assailants to the last. Despite being outnumbered, their resolve remained unyielding as they braced themselves for the next onslaught, determined to fight to the bitter end. Seated in his chamber, the boy meditated intensely, his face twisted in a grimace as he battled through a nightmare. Abruptly, he awoke, unleashing a forceful punch into the floor, causing the entire building to tremble. In the aftermath, he struggled to regain control, his breath ragged, eyes wide with terror. It had been only a dream, yet its realism lingered, the taste of blood still fresh, his heart pounding relentlessly. It was a harsh reminder that it was only a dream. As he sat on the floor, clutching the hilt of his sword firmly lodged in the ground, he gazed into its gleaming blade, where the reflection of a young boy stared back at him. Over the years, he had grown complacent, his strength waning, his resolve faltering. He realized he had never truly felt at home in his previous life, and now, the prospect of letting go seemed daunting. Instead of striving for strength, he had settled into the comfort of his life at the manor, indulging in its luxuries without truly embracing the journey of self-improvement. Clutching his sword tightly, the protagonist acknowledged that he was not yet the man he aspired to be, and the looming presence of the cult served as a constant reminder of his unfinished journey. He couldn't afford to surrender. He had to persevere, grow stronger, and continue his quest to find his way back. Rising to his feet, his body pulsating with magical energy, he reaffirmed his resolve. With a swift swing of his sword, a swirling vortex of energy engulfed him, a testament to his unwavering determination. As he beheld the engraved inscription on his sword, "Always remember who you are and where you come from," he knew this truth would guide him. Now, having attained the 8th level of Saint Power, he possessed the strength to unlock the contents of the long-awaited letter. Rushing to inform his mentors, he was met with shock from the patriarch and jubilation from his uncle, who rejoiced in his accomplishment. Standing before them with humility, he sought permission to finally unveil the letter's secrets, eager to uncover its significance for his future. With a nod from his father, the time had come. Carefully unfurling the envelope, a piece of paper bearing a cryptic message slipped out. "The boy has been accepted." Confounded, he looked to his father for clarification, his curiosity piqued by the unexpected revelation. A letter of acceptance. The father began to elucidate its significance. It was an invitation to the prestigious Karo Academy, renowned throughout the Jian Kingdom for nurturing the finest martial artists. Only those who achieved the 8th level of Saint Force before turning 18 were eligible to attend. With a reassuring pat on his son's shoulder, the father affirmed the boy's exceptional talent and suitability for this honor. The future of the family, he emphasized, rested upon his son's capable shoulders. Observing from a distance, the uncle remarked that the entrance exams would commence in 3 days, expressing confidence in the young gentleman's ability to succeed. Suddenly, a majestic eagle soared into view, landing gracefully beside them. The father explained that it was a spatial belt, specially prepared for his son. If the boy could ascend to the 9th and 10th levels of Saint Power and attain the status of a saint before turning 18, he would be rewarded with a spatial ring. With determination in his eyes, the boy affirmed his readiness, assuring them that he would swiftly achieve his goals. His mother swiftly appeared, laden with supplies for his upcoming journey. With a worried gaze, she expressed concern for her son's well-being, reminding him that this would be his first time leaving home. She had meticulously prepared an array of delicious provisions to sustain him on the road, along with a month's worth of planned meals. She insisted he prioritizes his nutrition and studies. The boy, feeling irked by her fussing, asserted his independence, declaring he was no longer a child and could fend for himself. His mother, undeterred, couldn't resist a smug remark about the envy of the third wife and her sons upon hearing the news of his acceptance into the academy. "You've made us proud, son," she added, gloating with pride. Noticing her triumphant demeanor, the boy couldn't help but smirk in agreement. Drawing closer, the uncle suggested they depart as dusk settled in, signaling the start of their journey. With a glance at the darkening sky, the boy steeled himself for the long road ahead. Taking their seats atop the majestic bird, they readied themselves for takeoff. As the boy waved goodbye, his parents remained rooted, watching their child depart with a mix of pride and apprehension. His mother reminded him to keep in touch, urging him not to forget to write. The griffin let out a resounding roar, causing everyone to instinctively cower. With a powerful flap of its wings, they soared effortlessly into the sky. The boy felt an overwhelming sense of joy and pride as he realized he was now a student of such a prestigious academy. Seated behind him, his uncle struggled to maintain his grip on the griffin's fur as they ascended higher and higher, embarking on a journey towards a new life.